Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Villains on the Rebirth server. We are with Nightmare Lass, our level 48 Mastermind. I've just noticed we have 31 million XP earned and 3.1 million XP needed. So we need 10% of the total amount of XP we've earned to get to the next level. Not that there's anything particularly special about that. I just thought it was really cool when I saw the 3s and the 1s there. We are trying to get a story arc. I don't think we have one yet from Operative Grillo. I guess when we get up here, we'll get his story arc. We'll see. He says, I have received a rather odd request, which has filtered up all the way from Kalinda on Mercy Island. Apparently, a fellow named Mongoose has been having troubles with the snakes infesting the area. I know this seems beneath you. Yes, it certainly does. I fought snakes when I was like level 3. But from his report, it sounds like we might actually need someone of your caliber. Head over to Mercy Island and speak to Mongoose. Alright. So we're going to do that. Let's just double check. The mission is +1 × 2. That is correct. And we're going to head over to Mercy Island. And I don't know that we need to pause here because it should be pretty quick. We're only to just go down to the ferry, which is just past the statue here. And we are almost 3 beads into level 48. We'll do Grillo's storyline, and then if it turns out that we are nowhere near level 49 yet, we'll stop, and then we'll come back and do another story arc. What I definitely want to make sure we do is finish the Ghost Widow storyline. I haven't forgotten about it. I want to wait till level 49 to do that, because I feel like that should be kind of the capper for this character. Ghost Widow is, other than Lord Recluse, one of the major villains of the Rogue Isles, and she's sort of our mentor / arch enemy. And so I think it makes good sense that she'd be her story arc would be pretty much the end of what we're going to do. It won't get us quite to level 50 if we do it early in level 49, but it'll get us a couple of beads, and it'll be kind of one of the last major things that we do. I also may need to check the newspapers, but I don't know if we're going to have to do that, because in addition to Grillo, we have the Efficiency Expert, we have the Shadow Spider, and then, of course, Abyss. So we have a lot of potential story arcs and context to do, and we probably will not get a chance to do them all before we hit level 50. Alright, let's see what Mongoose has to say. He says, Yo, Nightmare Lass, I remember when you was just a young punk running around through Mercy. Yep. Man, you're real bad now, eh? Well, this might just be what you need to prove that. I seen some snakes running around some of the pits here on Mercy, which ain't like nothing I've seen before. I'm talking about big, mean, nasty. I thought I'd take them for a new pair of boots, but then they started whooping me hard. I mean, they was fast and killer, and I had to beat tracks before I ended up as Snake Chow. I reported it to Kalinda, and she said she'd talk to somebody higher up. I guess that's why you're here now. So I guess I'm higher up than he is. All right, let's go beat up these lame-o snakos who will be no match for my demons. I don't care how big and tough they think they are. Snakes are never more powerful than demons. The last time I fought the snakes, I had one demon, maybe 2 little demons. Now they're going to face the wrath of Curly, Larry, and Moe. My 3 stooges. In addition to Eeny, Meeny, and Miny, who were good at doing attacks, but not super tough. Alright, let's see what these snakes are up to. Come with me, boys. Is this the actual, like, original cave we came through? It looks like it might be the same layout. It's been so long, though, that hard for me to tell. Look at the little inscriptions that look like snakes on here. That's pretty cool. As usual, lots of good detail in the maps. They always did a nice job. Bones, rocks in the walls and stuff. They always did an excellent job in these maps with the detail and the decorating. Whoever was in charge of things like... I figured there was a lieutenant here. Whoever was in charge of things like the dressing, what they used to call the dungeon dressing, the detailing, in the in all the mission maps. I don't know if it was the same person every time or multiple people or if it changed over the years, but whoever's in charge of them pretty consistently throughout most of the maps did a really, really nice job. And we're being ambushed, which is why Eni's being pounded. I can heal him well enough, so we're fine. Did somebody go running off? I thought somebody went running down this way. So, speaking on role-playing games, as I like to do. Oh, purple boss. Whoa. Okay. Well, let's do a little Hell on Earth, and we'll do World of Pain, and I'll cut his defense down. I'll hold the other buffs in reserve. That's a minion. Alright, so you guys can move up, and then attack. And then I will debuff. There we go. That is a serious boss. Alright, so as I was going to say, I like to talk about role-playing games and kind of general RPG comments about things like D&D and Champions. So what I've read is typically, I read these things on the D&D Beyond forum, because it's a forum that I read regularly since I am playing D&D, and I read it for, advice about DMing and stuff like that. But it is something that is generally true for all role-playing games, and so I think it's worth mentioning. And that is about party balance. And by that I don't mean things like, is there a tank versus a healer versus a scrapper or something like that. But rather in terms of the build and whether characters in the party are been min-maxed, have they been min-maxed, or are they not being min-maxed. And oftentimes you will have a problem in a party, and a problem as a GM. When you have a party or a group, a superhero team, whatever, and some subset of the party is heavily maxed and power gamed, and another subset of the party is not. Sometimes this happens by choice. It happens because, some of the players want to min-max and others actively, like me, actively do not. A great example of that in City of Heroes is where I said, look, I'm just doing SOs, right? And then maybe and the other people in my supergroup were like obsessing over enhancement sets, and not just any old sets, but exactly the right sets. And they were spending, $500 million to $1 billion influence on getting their characters kitted out, whereas I was just using SOs or maybe some generic invention enhancers, right? And so, it can be by choice. Sometimes it's because of inexperience of the player. So, for example, they may not know how to min-max. They might be naive about how the game system works and not understand that, if you don't put your best stats in these categories, you're not going to do well compared to everybody else. And the thing with min-maxing or power gaming versus not is, as a proposition, neither min-max characters nor sort of gimped characters or non-maxed out characters really are problematic in and of themselves as an objective proposition, right? It's not really an issue. I see we're being assassin stricken. There's a stalker in here. Somebody just attacked one of my minions with assassin strike. There he is, the Elder Viper Assassin. Well, he's dead. So, it's not a problem to play City of Heroes decked out in SOs. It's not a problem to play City of Heroes decked out in all kinds of enhancement sets. It's not a problem to play D&D with your character power gamed, or play D&D with your character not power gamed. Neither one of them is objectively problematic. Shall we see if we can pull? I'm guessing we can't. I'm going to go ahead and start buffing. and then we'll try to pull, and if we can, we can, and if we can't, no big deal. So, it's not a problem if you're a game master to have a party of min-max characters. If you know they're min-maxed, you deal with it. You just set the encounters a little bit harder. You prep for them as a power game group, and you're aware. Wow, that was a very powerful strike. You're aware of what they can do, and you calibrate the mission or the adventure appropriately. In City of Heroes, what do? Well, when you're fully statted out with invention enhancements and you have all of your invention buffs, there's another assassin attack. You put it on +4 or +3. And if you're on SOs, you use +0 or +1 or +2, right? So my characters did +2 times 2 or something like that, and fully kitted out uber maxed out characters are doing +4 times 6 or something like that. So you account for it. If you have an entire group that's maxed out, no problem. If you have an entire group that's kind of purposely weak and not maxed out, no problem. The problem comes when you have a couple of characters who are one way and a couple of characters who are another way. You have one character who's got all the sets and 1 billion influence worth of upgrades, and another character who's just using SOs. Well, now you're going to have a problem, right? Because +2s are going to challenge the SO character, and +4 times 8s are going to challenge the kitted out character. Same thing in D&D, right? A deadly encounter for a maxed out for a deadly encounter for a sort of an inefficiently generated character is going to be like trivial to a maxed out character of the same level. And so what this means is that you have to watch out when you're a player to make sure that you're not doing sort of the only one who's doing the opposite of what everybody else is doing. So in this one forum post, the person was saying that the DM killed his character because his character was overpowered, and he came on the forum to rant and complain and to have us. What usually happens is people don't like what their DM said, so they come onto the D&D forum and the D&D Beyond forum, and what they want us to do as people on the forum is say your DM was wrong, so that they can go to their DM and say, see, the forum said I'm wrong, right? You said you're wrong, which generally we're not going to do because we don't know all the details and stuff. But my point is, if you're the only min-maxed character and everybody else isn't, and your character is steamrolling through the missions, you should have the sense as a player to go, okay, this isn't a good idea. Let me de-max this character, somehow or other, reduce the max outy kind of nature of the character. Same thing in City of Heroes. If you're constantly gaming with people who are all on SOs and you are maxed out, that's potentially an issue, right? So play with an alt that's just got SOs, and then everybody's at the same level. And so I would just say, be careful when you're gaming with other people that you make sure that your character is in line with the power levels of the rest of the group, and realize that because the way these games work, the DM or GM is under a number of constraints that could potentially make their job impossible if you have a super maxed out character and the rest of the party is weak, or if you have a weak character and everybody else is maxed out. There are, in the opposite of the power gaming group, there are people who, like, I do SOs because, fine, whatever, I don't care, I don't need to do +4 missions. But there are people who will purposely gimp their character because they feel like it's purer, that it's like more in character to have all of these, to be just burdened with all these imperfections, and a character that can barely move. The wizard with the 13 intelligence instead of the 17 or 18 that they usually have in D&D. And even in low dex, so his armor class stinks, and he's practically going to die in every combat, and that's fun for them. But if you do that with a party that's like built in a more traditional maxed out way, that's going to give the DM fits, because he's got to constantly worry about killing your character. And even if you say, look, I don't mind if my character dies, yeah, game masters usually don't want to kill your character off. And if you talk about like doing this in City of Heroes, one of the reasons I didn't group up with my supergroup mates on the Daybreak Initiative very much is because they were all on +4 times 8s, they were all on sets, and I was mostly on SOs or just generic inventions, and I felt like I'm going to be holding them back. So until Silver Phoenix got to like 50th level and started getting incarnate abilities and having sets, when she was lower level, I did story nights with them, but I never did any like real task forces or whatever with them. Partly because I don't like the task forces that much, but partly because I didn't want to feel like I was holding them back, and I knew I would be because my character wasn't built like theirs. So you just have to keep an eye on that as a player. It's not the game master's job to make sure that you're balanced with the other party members. I mean, the GM should be paying attention to that, but as a player, you should be paying attention to that too. It's a cooperative venture, and you should be doing what I did, on the Daybreak Initiative, assess the situation and make sure that you aren't doing something that's going to disrupt the entire table or the entire group just to have you have your way. Right? That's not the way role-playing games are. It's not about you. It's a group activity. So always keep that in mind when you're thinking about building a character and you're with a group. Try not to do things that are going to disrupt the play or make it hard for the game master to keep things balanced. All right. Let's look at our clue. The return of Slicer. When investigating the problem with a new mutant snake on Mercy Island, you heard one of them mention the return of Slicer and Stheno. So these must be guys that we fought in the beginning that I don't remember. Stheno and Slicer, this could be problematic. These are good names for snakes, especially Slicer. I'm going to have to remember that because I'm doing UNT as some of the villains that my D&D party is going to be fighting at some point. They've seen a few of them. They haven't fought them. They caused them to be killed by their own master. But they haven't directly fought very many UNT except for their ghosts. But I definitely need some snaky names, and Slicer sounds very snaky. I like it. I have to write that down. This could be problematic. Perhaps it is time to enlighten you as to some ancient history. When Arachnos first came to the Rogue Isles, they encountered these creatures being worshipped like gods. Arachnos drove them underground, but then looked into it a bit more of their past. A few Arachnos operatives keep knowledge of these records, but perhaps it's something worth looking into again. Excellent Nightmare Lass, you're a true soldier of Arachnos. And then we have two choices. Your recent encounter, so this looks like it. Your recent encounter with the mutant snakes on Mercy Isle has uncovered some history which I thought was long buried. Already I told you of how the forces of Arachnos first encountered these creatures upon arriving to the Rogue Isles. Well, there's more to it than that, and knowledge is the greatest tool to use against our enemies. While I'm not keen on her methods, she has produced results in fluent in such lore. Speak with Regent Coral about the snakes. Alright, so now we need to go to Granville and speak with Agent Coral. So again, I don't think there's any need to pause here because we're already at the riverboat, the ferry. I have to say I miss the trams. I mean, functionally the ferry's the same as a tram, but there's just something so nostalgic for me about Paragon City that's just not there for City of Villains because this is the highest character I've ever gotten in the Rogue Isles, so I just didn't play in it that much, and I have no real affection for it, whereas I have a ton of affection for many of the zones in City of Heroes, especially Atlas Park, Steel Canyon, Talus Island, which is probably my favorite zone, Founders Falls. I like all the pretty zones. Not a big fan of Brickstown, but it's okay, Anyway, so this area is just doesn't hold the same nostalgia for me. Alright, so Coral says, Nightmare Lass, how are you doing, my pet? I've been watching your progress through Granville, and the experience has proved most entertaining. You wish to know more about the snakes, yes? I know of these creatures, of how they were once the dominant force in the Rogue Isles, of how the early settlers of the islands would refer to them as gods and pay them tribute of blood. These snakes, or Slicer as they call themselves, worship the goddess Stheno. In their great temple beneath the island, they unlock the secrets of the earth. The world trembled at Stheno's touch. Recently, I've sensed a stirring at the edge of my consciousness, a powerful psychic force, but when I have reached out, it slips away. Whatever it is, it's cunning and ancient. Beware, Nightmare Lass. Okay, so that's who the snakes are worshipping. Again, possible fodder for my Yuan-Ti. And he says, ancient gods, remnants of lost civilizations. That's what we're dealing with here, Nightmare Lass. And this is what we should be prepared for. I control demons, so I'm not afraid of ancient gods. There's another source of ancient lore regarding snakes, which we have not tapped, the Circle of Thorns. I've spoken with the Arachnos mystics, and they have revealed that one of the older Circle temples might have more information. Invade the Circle of Thorns temple and find the information on Salicer. And I think, let me look at the time here, we're 20 minutes in, so yeah, let's just auto-teleport. And then this will be our last mission for the evening. Yeah, so guys, it's always important to remember that role-playing is a cooperative venture first and foremost. And that when you do things that are only about you and are selfish and non-cooperative, you're potentially damaging the entire experience for everybody. And it's never going to work. You might have a blast for one night, but if everybody else is hating life while you're having a blast, they're not going to show up for the next session, or they won't invite you to the next session. And the same thing with, being on a supergroup in City of Heroes or City of Villains. If you are a miserable member of a pickup group, nobody's going to want to put you on their pickup group in the future, and you will find that you have nobody to play with. So you have to be cooperative. You have to work with other people. It's very important. And these behemoths are going to suck. Well, actually, maybe not. We have tactics now, so it should be alright. And I'm going to actually lower their defenses. And that should enable me to wipe them out, even if they put on invincibility. Because we have buffs from tactics, and we have debuffs from, what is this called? Anguishing Cry. I always just think of it as the debuff and not Anguishing Cry, I guess. And Curly is doing his job by holding these guys. Very good. I think Curly's my favorite of the demons, but I also like the little guys. They're kind of cool. Yeah, I don't understand my one group mate from the Daybreak Initiative who said she doesn't even summon the little guys. I mean, they add a lot of damage when you multiply the three of them, right? Each one of them doesn't do that much damage, but when you add all three up, they're doing more damage together than any one of the other demons. So it's totally worth it, right? At least in my opinion. It's like adding another Mo by having these three out. Well, why wouldn't I do that? Alright, I mean, I think we're just going to go in. I'm going to go ahead and debuff them again. There aren't any of the invincibility generating behemoths right here, but doesn't hurt anything to do the debuff because it recharges pretty quickly. These hallways are very cramped with extra enemies on +2 and with all of my minions. I mean, they're ordinarily cramped anyway, but when you add in, a double-sized spawn, 4, 5, 6 guys instead of 3, and all 6 of my minions, it becomes quite crowded. And we can debuff again. Yeah, so that debuff power, Anguishing Cry, is really awesome. Because it recharges now every minute. Some of that's due to this extra 28% recharge bonus we have from our set. If it weren't for that, it'd probably take like a minute and 15. Okay, we're gonna go after the regular behemoth first, because I want to freeze him. Yeah, so speaking of cooperative ventures, if you remember, I mentioned that one of the players in my D&D group, actually the newest D&D player, has a friend who wants to join us, and she's a mother of a 2-year-old, rather than a mother of 2. She's a mother of 1, a 2-year-old little daughter, and she wants to join us. And I was concerned about, just her availability as a mom of a 2-year-old. And the fact that the 2-year-old, may, in the middle of one of our dungeon sessions, have a nightmare and need mommy, and, there's a father present who could comfort the baby. But, I don't know about this particular little girl, but I know when I was a kid and I wanted mommy, daddy was not an acceptable substitute. I loved my dad, but... Where's Miney? There he is. I loved my dad, but sometimes you just want mommy. What's the quote on Everybody Loves Raymond, where Raymond says, "All things being equal, where's mommy?" All other things being equal, we want mommy. Right? And, yeah, all other things being equal, when I was a kid, especially when I was scared or upset after a nightmare in bed, I wanted my mom. Now, sometimes my dad came, and, it was acceptable to have him versus better than nobody, right? And sometimes my grandmother came because she lived in the house with us, but mostly it was my mom, and what I wanted was my mom. And so, I don't think that a mom can say to her 2-year-old daughter, "Sorry, honey, I can't comfort you from the nightmares. I'm playing D&D." And so I was concerned, and I have to say, to her credit, this potential player who's probably going to be joining us, she opened up our meeting by talking about that and saying, "Look, this is a potential issue." And she said, her husband, of course, agreed to, take charge on D&D nights, but she said, the little girl is used to mommy putting her to bed every night, and she said, "I just don't know how she's going to take not being put to bed by mommy." And she said, it could be I'm trying to play a session with you guys, and there's a little 2-year-old screaming and having a tantrum in the background, terrible twos and all that. And by the way, we're looking for the snake lore, so I don't know how many of these glowies we need. Apparently that was not one of them. I thought I saw 2 in here. I guess I saw that one from over here, and then when I moved around, my brain saw this as a different location, but it's not. So anyway, she opened up by saying, "Look, I don't know how it's going to work." And she said, she's been a DM before. She DM'd for several years in both 2nd edition and then later in 5th edition. And she said, "I've DM'd before, and I know that, it's really hard when the group isn't consistent and when somebody's not showing up." So she actually said, if you have someone else that you are considering to bring into the group, you might want to pick them first and leave me as a last resort. And, well, frankly, we had already asked one of my friends. He just never responded to me. I don't think he uses Facebook much anymore. And I asked him on Facebook because it's the only way I have of contacting him. And he didn't answer me. So, at least she's responsive and wants to do it. He doesn't seem to. So we're going to try it, and we're going to see how it works. But I told her, if you're not there, the character's just... I'm not going to play her character the way I've been playing the other guy's character. I said it's just, it's okay to do it for one person, and I'm kind of grandfathering him in. I'm not trying to play favorites. It's just we've established that I do that now, so I don't feel it's fair to stop. But her character is just not going to be in the scene if she's not there. And I said, look, I'm not going to come up with an in-character roleplay reason why your character's not there, we're just going to ignore her character. And then if she shows up, her character suddenly will be there. And that's probably going to, screw up some combats. And it may be that if she has to come in late, that I have to say to her, you just, yeah, they're in battle, you're just going to have to watch. And then your character will join the scene after the battle's over, because if she's not there, I'm going to rebalance the battle for her not being there. Right? So, maybe there'll be one less orc or whatever in the fight. So now if she comes in, it'll be too easy, so she's just going to have to wait. She seems understanding about that, and obviously, if it happens too much, we're just going to have to say to her, sorry, no. And I actually spoke to the person who is one of our players, the person whose friend this is, and she was pretty clear that she understands that if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and there won't be any hard feelings. So, again, that's easy to say, and then when it happens, it may be hard to actually feel that way. There may be some hard feelings, even though you said there wouldn't be. We'll have to see what happens, but I'm encouraged by the fact that both of them recognize that this might not work out, and this is what we've kind of agreed is this first adventure will be kind of a trial basis, and we'll see how it goes. And if things don't work out, then her character just won't accompany them on future adventures. So we sort of worked it out that they're going to this particular city of gray elves, and her character is either from there or going there or whatever. And if that's like her home, let's say, we can just, if it's not working out, we can just say, well, she's just going to stay in her home and not follow you guys around, and that'll be fine. So hopefully it'll all work out. But I think my point here is that one of the things that I'm very encouraged about with this new person is, I was talking about the need to not be selfish, right? And she started off the conversation by saying, "Look, give the position to someone else if you have someone else in the wings, because they'll probably be more reliable than I am, and I don't want to screw things up for you guys." Right? That's the cooperative, non-selfish way to do this. And there's a boss down there, so we're going to buff up. And I just didn't pull my minions back far enough. Alright, let's go get him, and I'm going to debuff these guys. And we'll just go after him. He's just a death mage. He's like a regular boss. He's not a named boss, so he shouldn't be too bad. Yeah, we got him. And this glowing crystal, by the way, keeps the endurance up. It doesn't really affect the death mage, because most bad guys in City of Heroes don't have endurance problems. But it definitely helped our minions, because they do sometimes have endurance problems. So anyway, yeah, probably the most important thing when you're role-playing with other people, whether you're playing in City of Heroes in a pickup group, or whether you're playing in a super group here, or whether you're playing co-op Divinity Original Sin, or whether you're playing Dungeons & Dragons or Champions or Savage Worlds or Dungeon World or Stars Without Number, or any role-playing game where you're playing with other people, it's really important to remember that it is a cooperative venture, and you cannot be selfish in a role-playing game. It is just going to cause trouble and probably the destruction of the playing group. So, alright, so what's the story here? Okay, there's another glowy over here. And all these little asterisks are the crystals. Like, I don't know why, because you can't attack them. All these little things that look like enemies. And then there are some behemoths over there. But we don't need to go there, because we have found the clue we needed, which says, the lore of Silicer. We invaded a circle temple in the Nerva archipelago and found the lore of of Silicer, revealing how, in ancient times, a pregnant woman drank from the well of Furies and was transformed by it. She became known as the Gorgon Stheno. Now, a Gorgon is a Medusa. So she's the sister of Medusa. Stheno fled across the ocean in search of a place where she could give birth to her progeny, and came to the Rogue Isles. The birth of her progeny exhausted her, and so she retreated underground to rest and recover for centuries, and now she's probably coming back. Pretty cool. All right. So she's Medusa's sister, which means we got to watch out, or she's going to turn us to stone. That's okay. We have Mez defense. Rune of protection should protect us from being turned to stone. Let us talk to our contact, who says, "The Well of Furies, the sister of Medusa. This sounds like ancient myth, doesn't it? Nightmare Lass? But in myths, there's always a grain of truth. And in this truth lies strength. You would do well to remember that." And that's the end of his story arc, but it looks like there's still more for him to do. So we will continue with him in the next episode. Until then, I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Villains on the Rebirth server.